Welcome to this Sunday's Gospel Reflection. As the story goes, the young peasant fell in love with the king's daughter, and he went and courageously asked the king for her hand. This was not going to be easy. The king presented him with 3 tests. If he succeeded, he would become the lucky husband. If not, he would have his head chopped off. The first test was to come in front of the king, riding a donkey and walking at the same time. The second test was for him to come before the king, walking in his shoes, but barefoot at the same time. And the third test was to come before the king, fully clothed, but naked at the same time. The young man panicked. It was a do-or-die situation. How could he square the circle? How could he reconcile the opposites? In life, it's either one thing or the other, but not 2 opposite things at the same time. It's either or. And he went up to his old wise father for some advice that would perhaps save him from death and win for him the much loved princess. And very calmly, his father gave him some simple hints how to reconcile the opposites. On the first day, the young man returned to the king, riding a young colt that was small enough for him to walk whilst riding it, his feet touching the ground. On the second day, he returned with seemingly new shoes on his feet, and the king thought that this time he got the young man, until he lifted his foot to show the gaping hole left by the sole he had removed from those shoes, through which his bare feet were touching the ground. On the third day, the young man returned to the king. This time he was fully clothed, but in just a fishing net, which left his body fully bare and fully naked. The moral of the story: if you want to win the hand of the princess you need, the princess you love, you need to be able to reconcile all that seems opposite and all that seems mutually exclusive in your life, under pain of death. The princess is the joy, the peace, the serenity in our real life. And the opposites and the reconcilable opposites, well, we all have enough experiences of that. And what is Jesus telling us in today's gospel? In our efforts to avoid pain and death, we spend time, our whole lives, pushing away what is heavy, burdensome, and unpleasant. A good life is not reconcilable with pain. It's either one or the other. Having it good can only mean having it easy. That is, and that has always been the definition of life according to the world or to the flesh. But then comes Jesus, the Prince of Peace, and he challenges this logic and exposes its falseness. Peace is never the result of pleasure and comfort. Peace comes only if we redefine what we mean by a good life. And a good life is not necessarily a pleasurable and comfortable life. Only the humble ones, the lowly, those who are unpretentious, and therefore who are wise, those who are poor and simple, can embrace the fullness of this kind of life that Jesus came to give us. No, there is no irreconcilable conflict between life on the one hand and death on the other. Peace and pain are not necessarily enemies. Giving life and sacrificing my life are not opposites. Grief and inner joy are not mutually exclusive. On the contrary, living is not eliminating or postponing death. That's how many people live their lives. Living is embracing death. Happiness is not getting rid of sadness, but accepting it. Giving is not the opposite of receiving, but it is its twin sister. What is hidden from the wise and learned of this world is revealed in its full glory to the little ones in their simplicity. The yoke of life can indeed be easy. Its burden can indeed be light, all at the same time, all at one go. They are friends, not enemies. They assist and not destroy each other. Joy is not the reward of pain. It is the meaning of pain, the very meaningfulness of our suffering. Peace is not just the absence of conflict, but it is the resolution of conflict. Security is not the elimination of an enemy, but the winning over of the enemy. Reconciliation is not eliminating differences, but respecting differences. We just read the papers and watch the news to see how futile is man's struggle for peace, for security, for reconciliation, because the world just concentrates all its energy to destroy what it sees as the enemy. But love is a totally different thing. Love is not finding happiness in what we receive from those who love us, but the daughter of our painful self-giving to those whom we love. This heavenly redefinition of real life turns our categories, our definitions upside down and inside out, on one condition. If we go to Jesus, we who labor and are burdened, it is He who will give us rest. Our soul will never find rest in our reasonings, our calculations, high-flown ideals, our noble considerations. These might perhaps be of some help, but by themselves they simply do not work. Life is much more than reasoning and fixing good intentions and noble principles. It takes a personal encounter with Jesus, right in our heart within us and in the heart of the person next to us. It is when we open our hearts to someone in a genuine, simple, but authentic and loving companionship that the burden becomes light and the yoke becomes easy. Some might give up their lives for an ideal or a cause. Jesus is asking us something different. Give up your life for someone. Give up your life so that someone will be indeed himself And that himself is not just the person of our neighbor, it is Jesus himself. Whatsoever you do to the least of these, you do unto me. Just ask your mom, your dad, husband or wife, brother or sister who really love you and who pay joyfully the full price of loving you. Ask them to teach you how life can become a light burden and a sweet yoke. Ask those who have paid the full price of an unconditional love in their marriage, their profession, their vocation. Ask those who have accompanied and cared for their loved disabled children to explain to you the sweetness of the burden, the freedom of their loving bond. Ask the dedicated priests and consecrated persons you know to show you the intense and deep presence and fullness of belonging, right in the heart of the solitude of their prayer and the loneliness of their celibacy. They will help you understand better what Jesus means when he speaks of his yoke, his burden. These are diametrically opposed to the yokes and burdens the world is uselessly trying to get rid of. It is only the meek, the humble, the simple of heart who will discover this divine and magical alchemy of love. It is capable of changing the heaviest burdens into the lightest of hearts and the most bitter yoke into the sweetest of companionships. Today, every day, let us open our hearts to Jesus, loving and challenging in his deep and life-giving invitation. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find your rest. Yes, we will win the hands of the princess, which is not an earthly princess, but the joy, the peace that only Christ can give us. He who is the Prince of life. God bless you and thank you.